following is a presentation of HBO Sports.
Coming up on a special Super Bowl edition of Inside the NFL. It began with 32 in September.
LT touchdown! Another remarkable grab! Touchdown again!
But there's only room for 2 in Jacksonville. The Eagles hope to fly home to Philly with their first Super Bowl victory.
McNabb fires. Touchdown to Jon Lewis!
While the Patriots are on their way to becoming this decade's dynasty.
Brady has been spectacular!
Also ahead, interviews with New England owner Bob Kraft and Eagles head coach Andy Reid, who knows he's got his hands full with the Patriots.
You look at the film, or you watch them play on TV, you know why they're there.
Plus, NFL head coaches Jon Gruden and Marvin Lewis break down Sunday's matchup. We'll hear from the 5 writers who have covered every Super Bowl. And Joe Queenan explains why the city of brotherly love deserves a Lombardi trophy.
USA Today recently reported that Philadelphians are the best tempers in the country, whereas Bostonians are notorious tightwads.
All that and more on Inside the NFL from Jacksonville. Welcome to a show that's desperate for a warm weather Super Bowl site. Bob Costas in Jacksonville, which I think is in Florida, along with Cris Carter, Dan Marino, and Cris Collinsworth. This is the site of Super Bowl 39. Now, as everyone knows, we assume you know, our first airing is on Wednesday, then we have several repeats. So there are certain things that may happen between now and game time that we're not going to comment on because we don't know about them yet. But we know for sure we've already OD'd on T.O. and talk of a Patriot dynasty. So, Dan, take us in a different direction.
What would you like to know?
Something I don't know already, courtesy of you.
Well, you know, when you look at this game, I think you have to look at Tom Brady and the fact that this guy's going to have a chance to win his 3rd Super Bowl, 27 years old. I think it's incredible in how he's handled, you know, the pressure of these big games, especially winning both of them in the last few minutes of the game with field goals to win. And if you think about this, him possibly winning 3 Super Bowls, can you say maybe that he goes down if he wins this game as one of the best of all time?
Yeah, I think that you have to begin to think about him in those terms, but you also have to begin to think about the possibility that Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, could they win 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, you just don't know what could happen to this franchise should they get off and win a 3rd one here in 4 years, because there's really no sign, Bob, that anytime in the near future that this team's going to fall apart because they make those types of sacrifices.
Yeah, if not too many of their most important players decide that there's bigger money elsewhere. Well, they'll all take somewhat less money to stay together.
And that's what's happened. And you're seeing teams, just like in baseball, guys that want to go get a ring are willing to take something less at the end of their career to come play for the New England Patriots. Corey Dillon, the perfect example.
The conventional wisdom has been that you can't have the kind of sustained success that defined a dynasty in previous decades, where maybe you win 3 or 4 Super Bowls, but beyond that, you contend for the Super Bowl every year for a decade or more, the way the 49ers did, the way the Cowboys or the Packers did
let's
early
slow
on
down a
with the
little bit,
Steelers.
because they haven't won anything. This is the same. 3 years ago, we were doing the show. We were saying the same thing about St. Louis. They pretty much have won the game. New England's just going to go out there, roll over. The Rams are going to be the champion. But right now, Donovan McNabb is in a perfect position to become the person, Tom Brady, and what he did 3 years ago. Going to the game, and not necessarily with his arms, because New England has struggled with quarterbacks who can run the football. Roethlisberger had some success running the ball on 3rd down. Last week, I looked for McNabb to have a big game, and he's going to be fighting to try to hoist that trophy at the end of the day.
I don't think anybody meant, in the course of discussing what the Patriots have done, to discount the Eagles' chances. And if the Eagles were to win this game, it would be an upset, but it wouldn't be anything like the shocker when the Patriots beat the Rams the first time around, because the Rams were almost a 2-touchdown favorite.
And you have to remember, too, that the Philadelphia Eagles defensively, since they made the move to Jeremiah Trotter in the middle and have improved against the run, this team has not lost a game that they've tried to win. They lost the 2 at the end of the season that were totally meaningless because they didn't play their starters, but they have yet to be beaten with their starters on the field the rest of the way.
Well, I will say this, though. The one thing for the Eagles to win this game, they're going to have to play perfect football, because New England's a team that does cause turnovers. They haven't had a turnover in the playoffs so far this year. And for the Philadelphia Eagles to win, they're going to have to play perfect to win this game.
And, T.O., I'm not OD'd on T.O. T.O. is going to have to be able to do something on Sunday.
We shall see. We have a packed Super Bowl preview show ahead, including conversations with Eagles head coach Andy Reid and Patriots owner Robert Kraft. And we'll get the players' perspective as Brian Dawkins and Deion Branch will stop by the set. Plus, Jon Gruden and Marvin Lewis help us sort through the X's and O's. But first, a refresher course, a look back at how the Eagles and Patriots made it to the NFL's biggest stage through the lens of NFL films.
It's going to be the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I'm saying it early. Eagles in the Super Bowl. You can't get the title unless you knock your champ out. And we the champs. Whatever you got, I expect that. We going to dominate this thing. Respect is not given, it is earned.
Hey, rise up. Hey, take it to another level, all right?
You better get your head stick ready, baby, because it's coming. Straight at you.
Seems a little hostile, doesn't he?
It is game one as we get set to open defense of the Patriots champion. 16 wins in a row. McNabb fakes. He rolls. He looks. He's right firing. Over. Touchdown! This crowd has gotten its first dose of McNabb to Owens, and they love it.
It ain't going to stop. That's what we're going to do all year, baby. All year. All year, baby. Yo, it's T.O.
That is the luxury that McNabb, until this year, never had. And he pulls down another batter in the end zone.
That's why I wanted to get out of San Fran. Huh? Talk to me now.
He's doing Ray Lewis's dance in his face. He knows how to dance.
The Eagles are doing something that no Eagles team has ever done. Win 7 in a row at the start of a season. The Patriots have won 19 consecutive football games. A new National Football League.
And that's what these guys do week in and week out. They find a way to come up with a big play.
They got Troy Brown out there, man. Come on.
Pump big players end zone. Intercepted Troy Brown.
Well, they use everybody on this football team.
That right there is making history. We're going to show this nation what we all about as a secondary and as a defense. We're going to dominate.
It is intercepted by Quentin Michael in the end zone.
Hey, NFC East champs, one more time, huh? Keep this perspective, man. T-shirts are nice, but diamonds are a girl's best friend, baby.
McNabb rolls right, looks left, he screens to Westbrook. He's at the 10. He's in for the touchdown.
Keep pressure on. We got to get more and more and more.
This is what you fear most in these games. Terrell Owens is one of the players this team can least afford to lose.
This is the best team in the NFL. Let's go out here and play like we are today.
McNabb again. He looks, he fires, he played to L.J. Smith, who caught up the football, but it's caught in the end zone by Freddie Mitchell. For the 4th consecutive year, the Eagles are 1 win away from the Super Bowl. What a performance by the Patriots. Teddy Bruschi made the tackle and ripped it right out of his hands, and the Patriots have the football.
Corey's running different now. He's in the postseason now.
Is this the day when the Eagles take that final step and head to the NFL's biggest game? The Patriots have laid a whooping on the Pittsburgh Steelers here in Pittsburgh this evening.
This is getting to be a nice habit.
Oh, it's a wonderful habit. For the first time in 24 years, the Eagles are headed to the Super Bowl.
They didn't believe we could do it. We're nothing but a bunch of replacements. They didn't believe we could do it.
These fans are finally going to have an opportunity to rejoice. The Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl for the 2nd year in a row.
Look the fight! We're coming to Jacksonville! One more!
So that's how the teams got here, and now to explain to Dan Marino and myself how the Philadelphia Eagles are going to take that next step and win a Super Bowl is 4-time Pro Bowler Brian Dawkins. And Brian, good to see you, but I went to school in Gainesville, just across the road here a little bit. I don't remember this kind of weather. What happened in your hometown?
I tell you what, I guess a lot of people thought we were going to come down. They're going to get out and lay down in the sun and get little sun tans. It's quite different than they expected.
Sure was.
Well, you know, all the talk this week, Brian, obviously, you know, the excitement, I guess, for Philadelphia fans and the people is T.O. You know, we know he's going to play. What kind of impact do you think he'll have this week in the Super Bowl?
It'll be a tremendous impact. You know, if he's out there, and I said this all along, that if he does play, it's not going to be a decoy thing like people thinking. He's going to get out there and play. He's a warrior. And what he does is, you know, as me having to play against, you know, Randy Moss and those guys, you have to pay attention to those type of receivers, and you have to dictate sometimes your coverage to that type of receiver.
Is this going to be a distraction at all? You know, has it been a distraction this week?
No, it has not. And I know some guys probably get a little tired of answering the question, but for me, I've answered about T.O. all year. Whatever the situation may be, every week it was something that is going on with him, and I've always backed him, and I'm always do that. So I don't mind answering questions about one of the best receivers in the game.
All right, well, let's go on to your defense now and talk about that. It's interesting that this week you're going up against a defense that's received all sorts of accolades, and justifiably so. But you go back and look at the statistics, and you guys have essentially given up the exact same number of points defensively, and you guys didn't even play the last two games in an effort to try and win those. Little chip on your shoulder maybe for the lack of attention?
I tell you what, we approach every game to play a certain way, and that's to not give up points. And I thought we did a pretty good job of that, but yet and still, as a defense, for some reason, we're still bend but don't break. We still give up running yards when we haven't done that. So for some reason, people are still looking at us as a defense as what we used to be. We're not that defense anymore, and hopefully we'll be able to go out and prove that this weekend.
So you look at the New England offense and Tom Brady, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 rings. Offensively, they're extremely balanced, okay?
Yes.
So what's the game plan? Without giving the game plan up.
Yeah, go ahead, give up the game plan.
How are you going to stop these guys?
First of all, just go ahead.
Now, you know what? What you have to do with this team, first and foremost, is you cannot let, you know, Corey Dillon get going. You cannot let that offensive line dictate tempo, because when they do that, then Brady is that much more effective with the play-action pass. He's one of the best quarterbacks I've seen as far as that play-action and being able to move a safety just by looking him off. And that's something that I pay attention to, because I have to be in the deep middle a lot of times. And another thing, you can't let him just sit back in the pocket and pick you apart. You have to try to get pressure. And like I said, with that play-action pass, that run game, it's not always easy to do.
Well, you may not know this, but that was Tom Brady's helicopter taking him to the game. He's a big star out here. I want you to talk about the difference in this defense, though, because this clearly was a defense that gave up a lot of rushing yards. Then they make the change in the middle and bring Jeremiah Trotter in. And his big saying is what?
Turn it back to your boy.
Turn it back to your boy. That's all he says. You guys turn it back to me, and it has really worked out, hasn't it?
It has. And, you know, when Jeremiah came in, he brought a certain mentality to us. And he's saying that every week, and he says it all the time. And what that means is that I believe that I'm going to whoop the guy who's blocking me, and I'm going to be free to make a tackle. So if you turn it back, I'm going to be there to make that play. But he's added so much to us, and now we play this game with a different mentality, and it's largely because of what he's done.
You look at the New England wide receivers. They don't really have that bright star out there that everybody's talking about, but they are a pretty well-rounded group. They are a pretty well-rounded group. So what do you look for as far as defending them? Well,
you know that each guy, they bring different things to the table. And, you know, you're talking about Branch. He's the speed guy. You know that cat can get out, flat out run. And, you know, he's more of the physical guy. He's more of the guy that you bump and run, he can move you a little bit. So each guy you have to do different things with, but with them all, you have to try to do different things to them as far as trying to mess up the timing with Brady and the receivers. And like I said earlier, that's not an easy thing to do.
You know, this may well come down to, and I know the focus of your defense, because I've talked to you guys so many times this season, you're going to stop the run. You're going to do whatever you have to do to stop the run. So now between Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown, this is going to be their big coming out party, and it's on the biggest stage in the National Football League. Do you feel like those guys are ready for some one-on-one coverage, which they're going to have to play if you guys are going to win?
They're ready. They're big time ready. They've been battle tested this whole year. They've gone through the criticism of can they do it? Can they replace, you know, 2 of the best corners that the Eagles have had in their history? Can they replace those guys? So they've gone through they're too small, they're too short. I think they're ready to whatever Jim asks us to do and put those guys in one-on-one. I believe they can do it.
Well, Brian, we appreciate your time, and congratulations on the great year, and best of luck in the Super Bowl.
Good luck, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. While this will mark Brian Dawkins' first Super Bowl, the big game is nothing new to his head coach, Andy Reid. As an offensive assistant with the Packers, Reid was 1-1 in the Super Bowl. And Bob Costas now with the man Philly's counting on in this Sunday's game.
The pressure exists everywhere in the NFL, but Philadelphia is a particularly intense town. The fans, the newspapers, talk radio, and yet everybody who knows you well says that after the 3 losses in the NFC title game, you were pretty much even-keeled. What do you think it is about you personally that allows you to, if not shake it off, at least not be terribly affected by everything that goes on around you?
Well, I don't know. You surely don't want to lose those games. Well, the one nice thing about going to Hawaii was that you could get it out of your system. You can sit over there and like a big baby cry for a week. And
yeah, because the coach that loses the conference championship coaches the Pro Bowl.
Exactly. So you go over there and you pout for about a week, and then you come back and, hey, we're ready to go.
Talk radio just about everywhere is pretty much over the top these days, but Philadelphia may take the prize. Do you ever listen to it? Do you get a kick out of it?
No, I stay away from those AM channels.
Good thing he tuned out the day of the 1999 draft.
With the second pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Donovan McNabb, quarterback, Syracuse University.
When there were other quarterbacks out there, Couch was out there, Achilles Smith, McNown, Culpepper, Edgerrin James was there, Ricky Williams was on the board. You wanted Donovan McNabb. Why?
I thought he could handle this city very well. It's a tough city because they're fanatics. They love football, and that's the way you want it. But you have to be wired right too to handle it.
Hey, don't ever let them see if you're frustrated or not, right? Okay, don't even worry about that. We're gonna be okay. We're just gonna keep pounding and we'll get this thing going. Right. Stay patient with it.
He could let the tough things kind of roll off his back, but also be passionate about what he was doing, and people would read into that and follow him. So, and then he's a great football player.
You went up to Syracuse, as I understand it, and had dinner with him, just to get a feel for the young man.
Well, I did. I went up with a crew of guys. We saw him in his element, and I thought that was an important thing, to see him around his teammates. How was he interacting? What was the respect from those teammates to Donovan? There was a crowd there watching this workout. How was he going to handle that? He had every coach in the National Football League up there watching him. How was he going to handle that?
And how did he handle it?
Well, very well.
Evidently.
Yeah.
3rd and 1. McNabb is back. He is looking. He is completing it to Westbrook. At the 10, at the 5. Touchdown!
McNabb is simply McNabbulous.
In retrospect, drafting McNabb was a no-brainer. But at the time, Philly fans weren't exactly thrilled, especially one very prominent Eagles supporter.
Ed Rendell, who was the mayor of Philadelphia, now the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, had his own talk show. And even the mayor of the city was saying, you know what? They got to draft Ricky Williams. And there were Philly fans protesting, holding up placards, we want Ricky Williams. Were you amused by that, or what was your reaction?
Well, I was a bit amused. You know, we went to the Maxwell Club, and it was my first few weeks in town here, and Ricky was being presented an award, and the lights dimmed down, and the Rocky music came on, and here came now Governor Rendell in with Ricky Williams, you know, on his shoulders, and they were coming in like it was a prize fight. I went, wow, this is a tough place now.
Maybe not so tough this week, as the Eagles, after 3 straight NFC Championship losses, are finally going to the Super Bowl for the first time in 24 years.
McNabb fakes, rolling, firing,
touchdown,
and it is complete to Jon Lewis. That could pretty much lock it up.
Sometimes in sports, when a team has an obstacle, and it's taken them a while to get past that obstacle, and finally they do, there's an emotional thing where there's kind of an exhale, and the next thing they're not prepared for. The Patriots are about winning the Super Bowl. Some people might fear that the Eagles have been about getting to the Super Bowl. Is that a legitimate concern?
Well, it could be a concern if you haven't prepped the right way, and I feel like our guys have, and will continue to do that throughout the next few days. So they've made it their goal from the get-go to not only go to the Super Bowl, but to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, there's Andy Reid. Let's talk about his team, Chris.
Start on the defensive side of the ball. I really think Javon Curse may well be the key to this game, having to get some pressure on Tom Brady. We saw the Steelers earlier this season unsettle him a little bit with some backside pressure. But you also have to think that Tom Brady knows they're going to be attacking Corey Dillon with the running games. That means Jeremiah Trotter in the middle. That means Keith Adams on the outside. They're going to be playing downhill. I think on first down, you're going to see Tom Brady trying to go play action, trying to get in behind those linebackers to slow them down a little bit so Corey Dillon can run the football.
Well, one thing Philadelphia will be looking for is field position. The way you create that is through special teams. Now, New England, the first 8 games of the season, really struggled as far as covering kicks, punts, and kickoffs. Look for Philadelphia to put Westbrook back deep the way he played last year, a significant role. Now, this year, early in the season, due to injuries, he's a featured running back, so they couldn't use him. Also, Akers, as far as a field goal kicker, a lot stronger leg than Vinatieri, not only on field goals, but also on kickoffs. So this is an area where Andy Reid and the Eagles have a decided advantage against New England.
Although you can't underestimate Adam Vinatieri in
Mr.
the clutch. He's won 2 Super Bowls and some key playoff games and regular season games with late kicks. Let's talk about Donovan McNabb. We heard Andy Reid say that he had faith in him early on, even when some of the fans and the media were on him about picking Donovan McNabb and making him the starter. He believed in him, and now here he is on the biggest stage.
Well, you know, he has taken some criticism, but he's been a solid quarterback for all the years he's been in Philadelphia. And you look at this year, he probably would be the MVP of the league if it wasn't for Peyton Manning and what he did. And you look at Donovan McNabb in this game in particular, he's going to have to do stuff outside of the pocket in order for them to win. The New England Patriots, like Chris said earlier in the show, they're not used to a guy maybe going against him who's going to move outside of the pocket and make plays. Also, he's going to have T.O. in this game, which I think is going to help tremendously because it'll take some pressure off the other receivers, and also it'll open up Brian Westbrook, who will be a big key in this game in order for McNabb to have a good game and also the Eagles to win.
And by the way, we don't know for sure how much or how effectively T.O. will be able to
play.
But
he will be out there.
Yeah, I did ask Andy Reid, by the way, about that bet, which people have forgotten about, where he said if T.O. catches 15 touchdown passes, he'll put on the cat suit, the skin-tight warm-up suit. He, Andy Reid, will, and prance around in practice. Well, if he catches one in the Super Bowl, that brings them to 15, and he says he will do it at some point when they reconvene after the Super Bowl.
That might be made for HBO, too, not sports.
All right, guys. Apparently, we're not the only ones with opinions on the Patriots and the Eagles. To help break down the game further, we've enlisted 2 head coaches to give us their perspectives. Peter King now with Tampa Bay's Jon Gruden and Cincinnati's Marvin Lewis, 2 coaches who have plenty of experience game planning for Super Bowls.
John, tell me what Andy Reid's going to be thinking when he opens his eyes and looks up at the ceiling on Super Bowl Sunday.
Part of you is very proud to be there. You know, you're excited, you're nervous. You don't sleep very much the night before unless you're dead. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. But I'm sure there's a large sense of accomplishment right there, and how proud you are to be in the Super Bowl since you dreamed about it as a kid. You just can't wait to play the game. You wish it could just start.
A lot of teams were just as anxious to face the defending Super Bowl champion Patriots this season, but only 2 came away with a win. It's one thing to try and stop an offense that boasts the likes of Tom Brady, Corey Dillon, and a core of reliable receivers, but facing the Pats' defense may be just as challenging.
Marvin, let me ask you a little bit about going against the New England defense. Of all the teams that played New England this year, you could argue that the Bengals had the most success. In the preseason, first unit against first unit, you guys got a 28-3 lead. Then you go against them and score 4 more touchdowns in the regular season. What did you see going up against that defense that maybe some other people haven't seen?
I think you got to have a degree of stick-to-itiveness to know that they're going to make some plays, they're going to blow some things up in the backfield. You can't go all run, you can't go all pass, because you see that they do a great job of taking it all away. If you feel is your biggest strength, or they feel is your biggest strength, they're going to take it away. They're going to nullify that and make you move on to plan B.
John, the key to stopping the Philadelphia Eagles is what?
McNabb. You know, he's going to create plays. I think as good as New England's been in the playoff games, McNabb is a halfback playing quarterback. He can break tackles. There will be times when protection breaks down, but he has the mobility and the strength to avoid the rush and create a throw. And I think those are the plays that might decide the outcome in this game, good or bad for them.
Put you both on the spot now. You got 1 game to win. You got one quarterback in this game to win it with. Who do you like, Brady or McNabb?
Go ahead, Marvin.
You notice I look at John and he looks right at you.
I have to be a Tom Brady fan. I've just been so impressed.
When you studied Brady, what was it that you told your defensive coaches, watch out for X?
His ability to look you off and throw the football back the other way.
His ability to look this way and then in a split second throw that way.
And then come back and throw that way. He understands what you're trying to get done on defense, and now he's going to attack it. And so we have to do a great job of not guessing. We've got to play true to form. We've got to do everything right and realize that he still can make a play.
Brady or McNabb?
Well, it's hard to go against Brady, you know, a guy that's won 2 out of 3 Super Bowls and on the brink of another one. But since it is a TV show and
and you want some ratings.
You know, I'm a Donovan McNabb fan. I think he's going to go into this game and play very, very well. I'm looking forward to seeing the Patriots deployment, how they go after him. But I do think he'll make some plays. He'll create some plays because he's a rare athlete. And just deep down, I'm pulling for him.
Put you both on the spot again. Give me your pick. Tell me whether you think it's going to be much of a game. What do you think, Marvin?
Even though I picked Tom Brady, I like the Eagles. I think Westbrook, to me, is a big factor in this football game, and you got to be able to control him. He can catch the football like a receiver. He can run it like a great running back. He'll step in there and block against the pressures. If Donovan has a free blitzer coming, he can move, avoid it, and then there's Westbrook.
How about you, John?
Well, I've already said I'd like to see Philly win the game, but I just think New England is going to win this game. They'll find a way to win, and you'll be shaking your head asking, how did they get Hank Poteet in the first place? They just do a phenomenal job playing the team concept. They're going to find, if it's a tuck rule, they'll win a game that way. They'll win a game somehow, some way. This football team will win another Super Bowl. I just believe that.
We appreciate the insights of Jon Gruden and Marvin Lewis, and we continue now with Sports Illustrated's Peter King in what passes here in Jacksonville for King's Corner. Let's start by talking about the New England Patriots. Regardless of Sunday's outcome, they're in the midst of a remarkable run, and they're doing it during a time of changed economic circumstances in the NFL. How are they pulling it off?
Well, Bob, I think the face of this team, you'd think maybe is Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. In my opinion, it isn't. It's actually Teddy Bruschi, the inside linebacker who last year negotiated by himself, without an agent, a new 4-year, $8 million contract with the Patriots. And you say, well, you know, 4 years, $8 million, sort of an average deal. Had Teddy Bruschi waited to free agency this coming off season in 2005, he could have doubled that at the very least at another team. But he told me this week, listen, I want to stay here for as long as I can. We've got a special thing going, and I think me and a lot of my teammates feel exactly the same way. The next guy probably, as you interviewed last week, is going to be Tom Brady, because he's going to be a guy who's going to have to take less if this team is going to continue on the path it is. But to me, the only way a team right now can stay great for a long period of time is if some of its players make financial sacrifices.
And as Brady indicated to us last week, certainly he's going to get a lot of money, but he is willing to take something less than top dollar, at least he implied that, in order to stay in a winning situation. Corey Dillon took much less than top dollar to come to a winning situation, but his reward is ahead, isn't it?
It is ahead, Bob. He's got 1 more year left on his deal, which will probably play out. But the whole thing with the Patriots, you listen to Corey Dillon, what he says, I never want to play for another team again. That's the ethos they have inside this team right now. That's why, regardless of what happens Sunday, this team's going to win 12 or 13 again next year and be a contender for the Super Bowl.
Our first airing Super Bowl week, as always, is Wednesday night with repeats in the subsequent days. So there are some things we can't talk about, developments that will take place as game day approaches, including the Saturday announcement of the players who have been elected to the Hall of Fame.
Like Dan Marino.
Yeah, well, that one's a lock. And Steve Young is a virtual lock, but we'll get to that probably next week. But a future Hall of Famer, Emmitt Smith, has decided that he is done. Why is he quitting now?
Emmitt knew that he couldn't be guaranteed the starting job in Arizona, did not want to be this itinerant guy who went from team to team just to get more rushing yards and just to distance himself from the pack. Jerry Jones, his once and future employer in Dallas, will fly into Jacksonville on Thursday for a press conference. Emmitt and Jerry are going to do it upright.
You've covered a lot of Super Bowls, Peter, a lot of big stories in that span of more than 20 Super Bowls that you've been around. But how about a sidebar, one that stands out that, you know, when you get to your third or fourth beer after it's all over with, you tell your buddies about?
Probably the best personal recollection I have, Bob, is after the Super Bowl 8 years ago. Brett Favre wins, and the Packers have about 3,000 people at the Fairmont Hotel in New Orleans. Everybody's excited, and I say to Favre, I just need you for 10 minutes. Can we just go somewhere for 10 minutes? We go into a stairwell at the Fairmont Hotel, sit on a luggage carton for 45 minutes. He says things like, you know, I know now that in 50 years, I'll be sitting in front of the TV and Steve Sable will come along, you know, barely able to speak, and he'll say, boy, that Brett Favre played one heck of a Super Bowl back in the 90s. And that was, to me, my favorite personal story with a guy the night of the Super Bowl.
I didn't mean to imply it took 3 or 4 beers to get you to the point where you were a good storyteller. I mean, right after the first one, you could have delivered that,
I
right?
actually had none that night, and that's when Favre was actually on the wagon.
All right. As I mentioned, this is Super Bowl number 21 for Peter King, and that is an impressive number, but not nearly enough for membership in one unique club, the group of 5 writers who have covered every Super Bowl, from the first held in January of 1967 in Los Angeles to this, number 39, here in Jacksonville. Together, they've witnessed the game's evolution. Here now, some of their recollections.
I think the first one had a semblance of unreal excitement to it. It was the culmination of a very bitter battle between 2 leagues. There was this terrible competitive edge. We must win this game. It's for the honor of our league.
When we first started this thing, for the first 6, 7 years, you could go to a player's room, knock on his door, sit there, talk with him, interview him, and you didn't have 5 Hessians standing behind you saying, all right, get on the bus, time is over, blah, blah, blah.
Gone are the days of unlimited one-on-one access and in-depth coverage. Now, writers are lucky to find room to hold their tape recorders at the annual circus known as Media Day.
Media Day is more spectacle than anything else. Some of the dumbest questions of all time. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you want to be?
The worst questions in the history of the game were, one to Doug Williams, have you always been a black quarterback?
He said, no, I used to be a black defensive back.
And then there was downtown Julie Brown, who was asking ridiculous questions and, you know, just trying to be seen in her derby.
She came running through the reporters and leaped into Dexter Manley's lap as I was talking to him. She put her hand on his thigh and started talking to him. And I said, Dexter, this conversation's over, because if you think I'm going to do that with the other thigh, you're nuts.
Somebody asked Bill Belichick, do you think your team will be distracted by the ongoing Martha Stewart trial?
This game isn't sacred. It's not a religious rite, and so it doesn't take away the mystique or whatever you want to know. But it just makes a great pain in the ass when you're trying to work.
The bitching and moaning and complaining and whining by the players gets sickening after a while. And I want to get it on the record that Jim McMahon of the Bears was the most determinedly obnoxious, rude, crude, crass participant it's ever been my displeasure to have to encounter. What a jerk.
If they'll talk to me, I don't care anything else about it. If they'll speak to me, if they'll answer my questions, they're my kind of player.
And it's not just the players. Sometimes the fans are the toughest to take.
The Oakland fans are clearly the most objectionable I have ever run into, and I don't care if they like that or not. They show up in their motorcycles. They show up wearing their Darth Vader costumes. They show up incredibly in need of a bath, and then they are loud and often obscene and raucous during the game, and it's a highly objectionable experience to be anywhere near them.
I think the rowdiest, wildest fans of all had to be the fans from Pittsburgh, with their hard hats, and they were all huge guys, and they were bigger than Mean Joe Green, and probably meaner, too.
The sports writer's best friend, the Super Bowl blowout.
Blowouts are great. They're great deadline makers, and God bless any team that can beat the crap out of another one.
People don't realize that we write during the game. Then the game is decided on a last-minute drive. And it changes the entire complexion, not only of the game, but of what we've written. Everybody says it's a great game, and we're in a sweat and a boil when it ends.
You want to talk about nightmares? The Rams go ahead with the clock running down, running down, running down. I write a new bulletin lead for a sub-column, and I let it go, and all of a sudden the Titans got the ball, and the Titans are driving, and now I'm in real trouble.
Back to throw is McNair. He's got Kevin Dyson, reaches to the goal line. No!
Mike Jones from the Rams comes up and stops him inches from the goal. I took a deep breath and said, Mike Jones, you are my Super Bowl hero forever. Picked up the phone, called the paper, said, let it go. I'll sub in half an hour.
To have covered the game all these years, the first thing you think is how lucky you are.
Well, I've been a football freak since I was 7 years old, and nothing could be more fun to me than football played best and seen by the most number of people.
I think going to the game keeps me going. All of us who have covered every game, we all feel that we want to stick together. There's no competition to see who can be the last one. I feel that way very strongly. I want to keep covering this. I don't care if I don't cover anything else all year, as long as I can cover a Super Bowl.
My name is Edwin Pope, and I write a sports column for the Miami Herald.
My name is Jerry Eisenberg.
My name is Bob Oates.
I've worked for the Detroit News for more than 40 years now.
And I have covered...
By the grace of God.
I have covered every Super Bowl.
Every Super Bowl.
Every Super Bowl ever played.
I'm proud of it.
So we just heard from a group of writers who are covering their 39th straight Super Bowl. Cris Carter and I are joined now by a player who will appear in his second consecutive Super Bowl game on Sunday. It's Patriots wideout Deion Branch. Now, a year ago against the Panthers, you caught 10, one of them for a touchdown. So your first Super Bowl experience was a great one.
Right. You know, going into that game, Coach Weiss and the staff did a great job of game planning for that defense that they had. And we knew that if we can block that front, that it was a bunch of holes and that we could hit a couple of those plays down the field, which we did.
Now, there's only so much as far as scheme that a coach can design. Now, I'm getting so tired of everyone talking about New England and their scheme. New England has very good players.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I think with that token, what you said, it takes some good players to make a scheme work. And, you know, we take our job and we run with it, just like Coach designed all the plays, and we just go out and get the job done.
Do you think that the receiving core, after this, if you can win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, will finally get the recognition they deserve?
I'm going to cut you off before you even finish. Nope. It just happens like that, you know, because like you said, we don't have that one big name guy. I mean, Troy is by far probably the big name guy on our team, but he's been moving around on defense now, so he's a defensive star now. So right now we really don't have no standout guy. So therefore it really wouldn't be no man. Even if we won the Super Bowl, we'll still be underrated.
Let's talk about Tom Brady. The book on him, almost all positive, but if there's any negative, and you really have to stretch for it, some people say that his arm is not really first rate. He knows how to manage a game. He doesn't make mistakes. But I'm beginning to think that maybe his arm is underrated. We've seen him make plays that you can't make with your head alone.
Exactly. Well, you know, like they said, throwing the ball down the field, they think they always asking the question, well, you all starting to throw the ball down the field. You know, it's just game plan. You know, we go into different games. We may not want to throw the ball down the field. They talk about last year we didn't throw the ball down the field at all. Well, we probably didn't have that type of thing to stretch the field at the time, or we didn't, you know, it can be all kind of things.
Early in your game at Pittsburgh for the AFC Championship, right after you took over on downs, Bettis fumble, but it was fourth down anyway, he threw deep to you a 60-yard perfect strike for a touchdown.
Yeah, he told me he had about 10 yards left in him, so before we broke the huddle, I told him, hey, just give me your best. You know, just lay it out there. And the line did a great job of blocking for him, and we caught him in the defense that we wanted to catch him in. You know, and Coach did a great job of calling that play, and we hit it.
Now, you have to be excited, not only because it's the Super Bowl, but if you look at Philadelphia, what you're going against, 3 Pro Bowlers in their secondary, but they are going to give you a lot of opportunities to be in one-on-one matchups down the field.
Exactly. I mean, with that case, we know that it's going to be at times that they're going to come down and certain downs they want to stop Corey Dillon. You know, we got to make sure we take advantage of those opportunities that they give us if it presents itself, you know, and I'm pretty sure Coach Charlie Watson and staff is going to do a great job of game planning again for this game. and we're just going to lay it out on the line.
Put yourself in the position of some of the Eagles receivers. Mr. Mitchell this past week was a bit vocal. Rodney Harrison took exception. You have to practice against these guys.
Yeah.
Do you want to get them angry?
Yeah, I get them angry every day in practice. You know, I don't mind, but I don't think you know, this type of game and the magnitude of this game, you don't want to start stuff before you get on the field. But, you know, I guess different guys have different approaches to games. You know, I wouldn't do something like that. You know, that was Freddie, and hey, he have to live with it, I guess.
Now, when you take the field on Sunday, will you take any of your past Super Bowl experience, or do you feel as if you guys have the advantage based on what's happened to you guys, not only last year, but the previous 3 years?
Well, I'm pretty sure we're just going to take it pretty much go into this game just like we've been going to the rest of them. I don't think it's an advantage, you know, because I think the team that's going to win this game has to win all three phases of the game, you know, offense, defense, and special teams. So whoever come out and do that, that's who's going to win the game.
Just in case, as we conclude the interview, you two guys don't pick up on it, I'd be more likely to pick up on it. That's "I'm a Soul Man" in the back. I don't know if Sam and Dave are actually here, but they're playing "I'm a Soul Man."
What year was that?
Yeah,
in the background.
written by my man, Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes wrote Soul Man? I'm thinking, what, 1967, 68?
So you don't have to tell people that when you got real soul.
Somewhere in there. You know what? It was before you were born.
Yeah,
one way or the
born.
other. All right. Super Bowl 39 marks the Patriots' fourth trip to the title game in the past 9 years. That's tops in the NFL. And a credit to owner Robert Kraft. In 1994, Kraft took over a franchise that had won just 19 games in the previous 5 seasons. And as Cris Collinsworth found out, no one has enjoyed the turnaround more than Kraft.
Do you think you fully understand what's going on here and how significant it is to the people of this area?
Well, I do know how significant it is. We're fans still. And, you know, we sat on these benches out at the old Foxborough Stadium, and we always used to hope for playoff games, and our season was pretty much done most years when Christmas time came, and we would go into withdrawal for football till the summer training camp.
That Robert Kraft, a Boston area native, is in the position of possibly bringing a third Super Bowl championship in 4 years to New England is nothing short of a modern football fairy tale. A lifelong Patriots fan, Kraft took the fortune he made in the paper and packaging industry and purchased his dream team in 1994 for what was then the most anyone had ever paid for a football franchise, $172 million, all for a team last in the league in attendance and revenue. I want to know how many people told you you were out of your mind before you actually signed on to buy the team.
Quite a few. Quite a few. But in life, you know, the greatest deals you do are not looking at the cash flows and not listening to the consultants, but following your instincts and what feels right to you. You know, part of that is having the stomach to take the risk and go through the tough times that you have to go through, because this business is a pretty tough, and in many ways it can be cruel and unforgiving when you lose. So therefore you want to set yourself up with a system the best you can to be in a position to win.
That system was critical for Kraft. Even though Bill Parcells took New England to the Super Bowl in 1997, he clashed with the owner and left. After the team regressed under Pete Carroll, Kraft named Bill Belichick his head coach in 2000. But things still weren't going as planned. He started 5-11. You start the next season 1-3. Everyone's saying, Mr. Kraft, you blew it on this coach. It's not going to work out. Did you ever doubt?
No, I used to call him in the tough period and said, look, I believe in you, you know, keep going, keep your system going. And the reason is, when I hired him, I believed he had a system. And he told me the first year, and some people might say, well, it's a way to cover your buns. But he said to me, this team is different than I thought. This is going to take more time. You know, setting expectations low is good in this business, but I believed him.
The belief paid off, and then some. Today, the Patriots are a model franchise playing in a model stadium, privately financed by Kraft. And the team is anchored by model quarterback Tom Brady.
We are so lucky to have a guy like that here. He is genuine. He's the real deal. I've had this discussion with him many times, that I worry that the only thing that could ever change him is celebrity, because it is intoxicating. And if you see the way he's treated, I don't think there's a woman in New England from 2 to 85 that doesn't think he's the greatest thing going here.
I don't know if you saw it on our program last week in the interview with Bob Costas, but basically he said, or inferred, that he's willing to take less money to stay here and be a part of this team.
Well, and I think he's very smart to say that, in a way, if he really wants to win. And, you know we want him here long term. There's no one else I'd like quarterbacking the team. I hope he can do it for at least a decade or two.
Tom Brady just may lead this football team for years to come, but with coordinators Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel bound for head coaching jobs on other teams, the Patriots will likely be tested next season. A lot of great teams have been picked apart over the years. How do you keep this one together?
Once again, it goes back to having a system. And are we training people, young people, or do we have people we can hire that are familiar with the system? And I learned this early on. When you have different coordinators every year, it's hard for the players to adjust. If you keep the same system and people who are comfortable with the system, you have a chance. I guess we'll see next year.
But for now, the Patriots are bidding to become the first NFL dynasty of the 21st century, facing the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday in a game that has an additional dimension for Kraft. In the Super Bowl, you face a friend and a former Bostonian in Jeffrey Lurie.
We've talked about it over the years, and of course a lot of his family members live here, and are real big Patriot fans, come every week to the games, have been coming for decades. And I hope they're still Patriot fans, except for his mom. I know she has to be loyal to him, but I think we think alike in a lot of areas, and it's a real thrill to be playing against the Eagles. And I'm so happy for him, because I know what it's like and how exciting it is for a community when you go to your first Super Bowl game in a long time. And I hope that he enjoys the Super Bowl the same way I enjoyed my first one, and comes back working harder for the next time. But we'll see.
Okay, Cris Carter, from the Patriots' perspective, what has to happen if they're to win for Robert Kraft, their owner, their third Super Bowl in 4 years?
Well, we know what Belichick and his defense try to do week in and week out is they try to make a team beat them doing things that they don't like to do. Philadelphia, the purest West Coast offense in the NFL, they love to throw the ball, throw it 60% of the time, run it 40% of the time. So what they're going to do is really commit a lot of people to coverage, be very, very physical with the receivers, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see a cornerback or a safety take a big shot on one of the receivers early in the game to send a message of how the game is going to be physical.
You know, don't forget, though, that Corey Dillon, but for the game he missed against the Pittsburgh Steelers due to injury this year, probably would have been the rushing champion in the NFL. And when he is on schedule, when he's gaining 4 yards and it's 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 2, that keeps Jim Johnson out of those blitz packages. I think you could almost follow Corey Dillon's numbers in this game. If he gets anywhere close to 100 yards, it's going to be almost impossible to beat the Patriots here.
Dan.
And, you know, you look at this game, New England Patriots, what about experience? I mean, coming into this game, most of the guys on this team has already won 2 Super Bowls, and you think about that, and the Philadelphia Eagles coming in the game, and they're just excited about getting to this point because they lost 3 NFC championship games in a row. Now they're there. You look at the New England Patriots, the way they've played and handled this situation. I was at the game in Pittsburgh. We did the game on CBS, and after the game, you could see them coming off the field. It was just like business as usual. They knew they were going to win that game. They're going to the Super Bowl to take care of business. So I think the experience in this kind of game goes a long way.
Well, thanks in large part to the Patriots, and the Red Sox have had a considerable hand in it as well. Boston is a pretty good place to be for a sports fan these days. Philadelphia teams have had their share of success, but ultimate victory has eluded the town of Philadelphia for quite some time. In fact, most Philly fans will tell you that misery lurks behind every corner. One of those Philly sports fans is satirist Joe Queenan, and these days his venom spews in just one direction, toward New England.
People in Boston never stopped sniveling just because the Red Sox couldn't beat the Yankees. Well, now the Red Sox have finally won, so everybody in Boston can stop whining. This brings us to the Super Bowl. For any number of reasons, the city of brotherly love deserves this championship more than the city of Boston. In their entire history, the 76ers have only won 2 championships, despite suiting up Allen Iverson, Charles Barkley, Dr. J, and Wilt Chamberlain. The Flyers have lost the Stanley Cup the last 5 times they were in the finals, and the Phillies, well, the Phillies are the worst franchise in the history of professional sports. And the Eagles have never won the Super Bowl, never even come close. 22 long years without a ring in any sport is not the only reason that Philadelphia deserves this championship. For the truth is, Philadelphians are better people than Bostonians. They work harder at tougher jobs. They eat less appetizing food. Their schools stink, and their politicians are inept clowns. And yet, despite all these obstacles, the Philadelphia public just keeps on keeping on. Philadelphia gave America Betsy Ross. Boston gave the nation Michael Dukakis. Philadelphia gave America Joe Frazier, Rocky Balboa, Chubby Checker, American Bandstand. Boston gave the nation Michael Dukakis. Let us never forget that the immortal Benjamin Franklin, born in Boston, fled to the city of brotherly love at age 12. Why? Because he saw Michael Dukakis coming, with John Kerry riding shotgun. Now is the time for men of goodwill all across this great nation to get behind the Eagles. Believe me, we need this championship. We want this championship. We deserve this championship, and by God, we're going to win this championship! If T.O. plays.
Okay, so we've heard from coaches, players, owners, sports writers, and with Joe Queenan weighing in, at least one churlish satirist. The only thing left now is the picks from our esteemed panel of experts. So, who wins the Super Bowl?
Well, for one, I think we need to give Andy Reid a lot more credit than we've given him. Everyone always talks about Belichick and what a genius he is, but I look for Andy Reid to come up with some things offensively. Also look for Dorsey Levens and Westbrook to be in the backfield at the same time. Westbrook split out and them getting the ball. I look for this game. The first time in NFL history, I'm going on record saying the game's going into overtime. New England wins by a field goal, 26-23.
Whoa,
Yeah.
all right, Chris. Well, that's pretty good. But I think personally, New England Patriots, with the experience of playing in 2 Super Bowls already, winning both of those games. Offensively, Tom Brady, they're very balanced. They'll be able to spread Philadelphia Eagles defense out, so they might not be able to use all the corner blitzes and safety blitzes they like to use. You look at them balance-wise. Tom Brady's thrown the ball in the playoffs so far 48 times. Corey Dillon's run it 47 times. I think that's pretty much perfect as far as having a balanced offense. I think New England's going to win because experience, and they don't turn the ball over, 27-17.
Yeah, the New England Patriots will not beat themselves. If you watch this team on tape week after week, they do not beat themselves. So that means that Philadelphia has to come out and do something special in this game. They have the players to do that. They have Donovan McNabb, who can buy time in the pocket. I don't think he necessarily has to run to win this game, but he has to be able to move around, buy some time, put that secondary in some uncomfortable positions. Defensively, Jim Johnson has to attack, attack, attack. Go try to win the Super Bowl, because if you don't make Tom Brady uncomfortable, if you're not attacking this team offensively, so what if they get a couple of touchdowns long down the field? You've got to go out, try and attack and win the football game. That's what Philadelphia will do. Will it be good enough? I don't know. I'm picking the score 31-17.
And who you picking?
I'm not.
Where's
the game? No prayer.
Where's your journalistic integrity, man?
Well, that is part of his journalistic integrity. He's working the game for Fox, so he makes no official pick. So you say the final score will be 31-17, but it could be either team with the 31.
How about that?
Well, Bob, you fill in as the expert. What do you think?
But
you break
know
it
what?
down for the
fact
people.
then that it's going to be...
Chris likes New England, by the way.
The fact then that it's going to be 3-0 officially doesn't indicate that we don't think the Eagles have much of a chance. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Eagles win the game, but I cannot pick against the New England Patriots until somebody proves it on the field. Every time we think that this team might be ripe to be beaten, with the Colts coming in with that great offense, they shut down the league's best offense. They go back on the road to Pittsburgh, and they avenge their regular season defeat there against a team that had won 15 consecutive games, and they're in the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in 4 years. I cannot pick against them. I picked the Patriots to win 24-13.
You've been paying attention to us.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That shocks you, doesn't it?
That's pretty good. And we have to say, congratulations to Dan Marino, possibly Saturday going.
Possibly. It's possible.
I mean, we're still working on it.
Let's say good luck.
Good luck. That's right. Good luck.
There are
Thank you very much.
There are 39 electors. If you don't get all 39 votes, I want the guy who voted against you or didn't vote for you on our first show next year.
Okay, well, thank you, Bob.
we'll
And
have
hopefully
him and
everything
Minnie
goes
Kiss.
well. And if it does, it will be a great, great honor, believe me.
All right, that's all the time we've been allotted for this week. Thanks to all who participated in this show from Jacksonville.
Congrats.
And we say so long, enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you for our final show of the season next Wednesday from New York. Good night.